forming as they came and went patterns about the openings like the fretted spume of great breakers surging into, retreating from, ocean-bitten gaps in some iron-bound coast. From the immensity of the city the eyes dropped back to the pit in which it lay. Its floor was plaque-like, a great plain smooth as though turned by potter's wheel, broken by no mound, nor hillock, slope nor terrace, level, horizontal, flawlessly flat. On it was no green living thing, no tree, nor bush, meadow, nor covert. It was alive with movement, a ferment that was as purposeful as it was mechanical, a ferment symmetrical, geometrical, and supremely ordered. The surging of the metal hordes. There they moved beneath us, these enigmatic beings, in a countless host. They marched and countermarched, in battalions, in regiments, in armies. Far to the south I glimpsed a company of colossal shapes, like mobile, castellated and pyramidal mounts. They were circling, weaving about each other with incredible rapidity, like scores of great pyramids crowned with gigantic turrets, and dancing. From these turrets came vivid flashes, lightning bright, on their wake the rolling echoes of far-away thunder. Out of the north sped a squadron of obelisks, from whose tops flamed and flared the immense spinning wheels, appearing at this distance like fiery whirling discs. Up from their setting the metal people lifted themselves in 1,000 incredible shapes, shapes squared and globed and spiked and shifting swiftly into other thousands as incredible. I saw a mass of them draw themselves up into the likeness of a tent, skyscraper high, hang so for an instant, then writhe into a monstrous chimera of a dozen towering legs that strode away, like a gigantic headless and bodiless tarantula in steps 200 feet long. I watched mile-long lines of them shape and reshape into circles, into interlaced lozenges and pentagons, then lift into great columns and shoot through the air in unimaginable barrage. Though all this incessant movement I sensed plainly purpose, knew that it was definite activity toward a definite end, caught the clear suggestion of drill, of maneuver. And when the shiftings of the metal hordes permitted, we saw that all the flat floor of the valley was striped and checkered, stippled and tessellated with every color, patterned with enormous lozenges and squares, rhomboids and parallelograms, pentagons and hexagons and diamonds, lunettes, circles and spirals, harlequined yet harmonious, instinct with a grotesque suggestion of a super-futurism. But always this patterning was ordered, always coherent, as though it were a page on which was spelled some untranslatable otherworld message. Fourth-dimensional revelations by some Euclidean deity, commandments traced by some mathematical god, looping across the veil, emerging from the sparkling folds of the southernmost curtainings and vanishing into the gleam of veils of the easternmost, ran a broad ribbon of pale green jade, not straightly, but with manifold convolutions and flourishes. It was like a sentence in Arabic. It was margined with sapphire blue. All along its twisting course 2 broad bands of jet margined the cerulean shore. It was spanned by scores of flashing crystal arches. Nor were these bridges. Even from that distance I knew they were no bridges. From them came the crystalline murmurings. Jade? This stream jade? If so, then it must be in truth molten, for I caught its swift and polished rushing. It was no jade. It was in truth a river running like a riding across a patterned plain. I looked upward, up to the circling peaks. They were a stupendous cornet thrusting miles deep into the dazzling sky. I raised my glasses, swept them. In color they were an immense and variegated flower with countless multiform petals of stone. In outline they were a ring of fortresses built by fantastic unknown gods. Up they thrust, domed and arched, spired and horned, pyramided, fanged and needled. Here were palisades of burning orange with barbicans of incandescent bronze. There aiguilles of azure rising from bastions of cinnabar red, turrets of royal purple, obelisks of indigo, titanic forts whose walls were splashed with vermilion, with citron yellows, and with rust of rubies, watchtowers of flaming scarlet. Scattered among them were the flashing emeralds of the glaciers and the immense pallid baroques of the snow fields. Like a diadem the summits ringed the pit. Below them ran the ring of flashing amethyst and its aural mists. Between them lay the vast and patterned flat covered with still symbol and inexplicable movement. Under their summits brooded the blue-black, metallic mask of the seeing city. Within the circling walls, over the plain and from the city, hovered a cosmic spirit not to be understood by man, like an emanation of stars and space. It was yet gem-fine and gem-hard, crystalline and metallic, lapidescent and conscious. Down from the ledge where we stood fell a steep ramp, similar to that which by, in the darkness, we had descended. It dropped at an angle of at least 45 degrees. Its surface was smooth and polished. Through the mist at our backs stole a shining block. It paused, seemed to perk itself, spun so that in turn each of its 6 faces took us in. I felt myself lifted upon it by multitudes of little invisible hands. Saw Drake whirled up beside me. I moved toward him, through the force that held us. A block swept away from the ledge, swayed for a moment. Under us, as though we were floating in air, the pit lay stretched. There was a rapid readjustment, a shifting of our 2 selves upon another surface. I looked down upon a tremendous slender pillar of the cubes, dropping below, 500 feet to the valley's floor, a column of which the block that held us was the top. Gone was the whirling wheel that had crowned it, but I knew this for the grinding thing from which we had fled. The questing block had been its scout, as though curious to know more of us. The shape had sought us out through the mists. Its messenger had caught us, delivered us to it. The pillar leaned over, bent like that shining pillar that had bridged for us, at Norhala's commands, the abyss. The floor of the valley arose to meet us. Further and further leaned the pillar. Again there was a rapid shifting of us to another surface of the crowning cube. Fast now swept up toward us the valley floor. A dizziness clouded my sight. There was a little shock, a rolling over the thing that held us. We stood upon the floor of the pit. And breaking from the immense and prostrate shaft on whose top we had ridden downward came score upon score of the cubes. They broke from it, disintegrating it, circled about us, curiously, interestedly, twinkling at us from their deep sparkling points of eyes. Helplessly we gazed at those who circled around us. Then suddenly I felt myself lifted once more, was tossed to the surface of the nearest block. Upon it I spun while the tiny eyes searched me. Then like a human ball it tossed me to another. I caught a glimpse of Drake's tall figure drifting through the air. The play became more rapid, breathtaking. It was play, I recognized that, but it was perilous play for us. I felt myself as fragile as a doll of glass in the hands of careless children. I was tossed to a waiting cube. On the ground, not 10 feet from me, was Drake, swaying dizzily. Suddenly the cube that held me tightened its grip, tightened it so that it drew me irresistibly flat down upon its surface. Before I dropped, Drake's body leaped toward me as though drawn by a lasso. He fell at my side. Then, pursued by scores of the things, and like some mischievous boy bearing off the spoils, the block that held us raced away straight for an open portal. A blaze of incandescent blue flame blinded me. Again, as the dazzlement faded, I saw Drake beside me, a skeleton form. Swiftly, flesh melted back upon him, clothed him. The cube stopped. Abruptly, the host of little unseen hands raised us, slid us gently over its edge.